Yeah, my name is Jake Cross. I'm the owner of Uncharted Film Co. We're a video production agency that helps businesses build their audience, position themselves as experts in their industry, and build trust all through video content.
Nice. Sweet. So the two big projects that we worked on together were the hiring assistant that's built to help you and your team with all the backend work that goes into hiring and selecting the right person and building all the training and onboarding. So all the backend work that goes into hiring. And then the second project that we worked on together most recently was the pre-production assistant that was built to kind of help again, your team do the work that goes into pre-production for your video production projects, which you know how much work goes into pre-production. It's a lot. So before we worked together on both of these projects, what were the biggest challenges that you were facing around hiring?
The biggest constraint for us, and I think a lot of business owners, is how do we create enough time to focus on like what we're best at? And I would say both the tools that you created for us just significantly free up the time that we're spending on, kind of more of like the tedious work that still needs like a lot of attention to detail, but just takes a lot of time, a lot of effort. And when all of our effort can come in just like a call with you and you're just gathering all those like that key information and can turn it into like a tool that just frees up so much of our time, it's obviously like always a huge benefit. I would say like the biggest challenges we were facing, yeah, is just the amount of time we've needed to hire for so long. But, being a small team, being busy with clients, like the busier that we got, the worse we needed to hire, but also the harder it got to hire because we didn't have, we had less and less time. So like that was a big issue. And again, like we haven't hired a lot. So like this helped us create like a consistent system to be able to replicate this over and over and continue to grow the team. So next time we'll be able to jump right into straight into the hiring process. Like we've got
Mhm.
everything laid out from like job descriptions to tools and systems. And
Love it. And yeah, I think if you want to just share a few specific examples of the types of things that you've used the hiring assistant to help you with in that process.
before the hiring assistant, we were doing everything very manually. It was pretty much creating a job description, throwing it up on Indeed, and then just like interviewing, narrowing down. So it wasn't like much of a process before. And really, before we used the hiring assistant, I don't think we actually realized how much we were missing
Mm,
throughout the process. So we've
sure.
used the hiring assistant to create the job blueprint. So we hired a video editor. We
Uh-huh.
created the video editor job blueprint, including like the job description, what's their responsibilities, who's going to be a good fit in that role, who's not going to be
Yeah.
a good fit in that role. But then even beyond that, a plan for onboarding them, a plan for monitoring them, for scorecards, for KPIs. We even used it for like what are like daily tasks that we can track to make sure that the person that comes into this role is easily finding success and not having to look for it. It was beyond just like the hiring process. It was a role creation process as
Mm,
well that it filled.
love it. Yeah, amazing. And I know thinking back to the times where we were hiring a lot for my agency prior to having this business implement AI, creation of the onboarding process, those kind of the daily winning formula, as Austin calls it, and like
Yeah.
the KPIs and like how are you going to measure and track all of those things was just such a, I mean, first off, I guess we started by not knowing that we needed to do it. And then somebody like Austin told us that, hey, you need to create these things. And then the actual creation of those things takes a significant amount of time. And it's like, okay, I understand that I need to do that, but I also have 5,000 other fires that are burning that need to go on. So it's like,
Right.
I don't really have a ton of time to do that. So amazing that the hiring assistant was able to help you out with that stuff. Love that because that really is the infrastructure that you need in place in order to have success when it comes with hiring and adding people to your team. Like that clear expectation setting and then the infrastructure to monitor and reinforce the habits and the work that you want people to be doing is critical. So for the pre-production side of things, obviously you talked about these systems, these tools have really helped take off a lot of like the tedious and manual, like time consuming work. So you guys can spend more time on what you're uniquely good at. And I think that there are different examples when it comes to this pre-production process for sure. So what you've used the pre-production assistant for and kind of how that helped make the process better or more efficient than before you had the tool.
Our big challenge when we reached out to you to help us with this pre-production tool is we wanted to get everybody on our team on the same page before we even start a project, making sure that everyone understands the branding, the
Mhm.
voice that's needed, the deliverables, the goal for every project, who we're interviewing, what kind of questions we want to ask. Just something that we could create that any person on our team could get their hands on and have a full understanding of what they need to do in their role to create the best project. So to actually achieve that, you can imagine like sitting there and filling all this information out every single time would take a significant amount of time. The biggest challenge that this pre-production assistant filled and what we really needed initially was a way for us to pull information and data from our onboarding calls, from our sales calls, from the forms that whatever clients filled out, pull all that information together and create this creative brief, this document that
Mhm.
can get everyone on our team on the same page and all kind of moving in the same direction on this project. That is like our biggest use case for it, and it's been a huge help. It's been a time saver, and it's just allowed everyone on our team to do their job better, I would say.
Love it.
We always want to be like a lead in the creative element of it, but like the additional tools of the pre-production assistant have been like huge assistant as it's meant to be, where
Right.
we could take that creative brief and it can help us with the video scripts designed specifically for that unique client using our brand voice. It can help us ideate, shot lists and storyboards, and just kind of like be like that partner that like get the ball rolling and keep the ideas flowing as
Yeah.
we work through the pre-production process.
Right. And which is super helpful because I mean, like you can use regular ChatGPT for this too, but I think like this version of the pre-production assistant, because of the context that it has about your agency and your style, it's just like a sounding board and just like a partner in that process because you're not an agency with like 55 people that
Right.
has 7 people dedicated to every project. Typically it's just you or somebody else on the team. That's just, it's like you and one other person. It's like two of you guys just figuring out
Right.
everything. So now you can kind of bring in like a third person or a third brain to kind of come up with some ideas to get through that creative block and just kind of keep the momentum of the project going. But I totally agree. I think that working with a pre-production assistant to help you fill out and create that creative brief for every single project is probably the most helpful thing that it does, because that creative brief is such an essential asset. It's like the source of truth for every single project that everyone can reference
Yeah.
for anything that they need, right? And that was something that we never quite got in my video production agency because, it was a couple years ago, so this tool wasn't really possible, and I also wasn't as good as
Yeah.
I am now at building these things. So I wish this was a tool that we had at our agency. When I talk to past clients, I learn new things. It's like these reinforce good process. Like these reinforce, like the
Yes.
hiring assistant walks you through the right process to make an excellent hire in your business, right? All the way from identifying the role that you should hire, comprehensive job description, right? So it just reinforces great process. And then same thing with this pre-production assistant, right? It reinforces following great process, which is first things first, that creative brief, like filling out the creative brief, it reinforces in guardrails to filling that out. So
Going back to
yeah.
the hiring assistant, just from a results standpoint too, like we've now hired without using the assistant and with using the assistant, and I will say it was significantly harder to narrow down our final editor this time because before we may have gotten 50% of the candidates were just totally unqualified. This time we received the same number of candidates almost, and they all had like the experience we needed. They all understood the role,
Wow.
and like using the steps, we had way more qualified candidates and had a way more difficult time making a final decision because it was way more competitive. So
Nice.
like the results were substantially better. Mhm.
Sweet. Thanks for sharing that. But what made you decide to bring in outside help instead of trying to solve and build these things out internally?
The capabilities of like AI, how they can help our business and free up time. Imagine what they can do, but unless you're working with somebody who has a ton of experience actually creating the protocols and like all these lengthy documents and like knowing what to do with the transcripts, like it's you're just not going to get like the result that you need. So like we knew through like a lot of the ideas that you shared with us what could be beneficial for our business. Even knowing them, we still couldn't create them. We still
Sure.
can tailor them to our business. To have somebody else who has like spent the time and has the expertise, for one, just to create the tools in general, but then also to like create them so custom and unique to like our business. We just would never have been able to do that on our own. So
Love it. Cool. How would you describe the process of us working together to build these out?
the whole process of working with you was very smooth. It started out with you doing a great job, like understanding what we needed, like what our problem was, not necessarily just listening to like, hey, this is what we want, but like truly understanding like the root of our problems,
Mm.
and like the hurdles that we have. And then once understanding like the problem, like really so in depth, like what is your voice, what just like the level of detail about learning who we are and like what our problems are and goals are was just like that was like the foundation. So the
Mm.
process, and then smooth transition from you sending us versions of the assistants and giving us the chance to test them. Not that it really took that many revisions to get there, but by the end, it was, yeah, exactly what we needed.
Love it. Sweet. Yeah, how does the hiring assistant actually fit into your hiring process today? Like, how are you using it?
It's created so many of the tools that we need. So I would say now we have the system in place to like really scale if we need to or when we're ready to. When we need to create like a new role, we also know how to use the system now. So it's ingrained into our system because now we have a place in like our files into our in our system, our operating system as a company, where somebody could go and access what is the role blueprint. What do they
Mm.
do? Like the role is like really fleshed out and accessible and open and laid out as soon as somebody starts. So like we have that foundation for this role now, and we know how to create it for the next one.
Cool. So, what did pre-production look like before for Uncharted Film Co., and how does your team use the pre-production assistant now, and kind of how did that impact the pre-production process and maybe the outcomes of the projects that you're delivering?
Pre-production for us has always been kind of figure it out as we go. Every new project kind of had like a new flow, a different system that we were kind of like creating as we went. Like, we did a lot of the same things like storyboarding and shot lists, but it just felt different every single time. Like, who's in
Sure.
charge of these things and when do they need to get done? And like, what project needs specific pre-production tasks and all that kind of stuff. So our initial need was let's turn all of these things that we do for different clients into a solid system. We can recreate it and get better at it, improve it, create a better experience for our clients, an easier system for us. And then the assistant just like allowed us to create all that. Like it's creating the tools that allow us to turn it into a system that can be like
Hmm.
replicated over and over.
Love it. And how do you feel like now having a more dialed in pre-production process is going to impact your business, I guess?
I mean, the most obvious thing is having this system dialed in, having the pre-production assistant is going to allow us to two things. I would say mainly it's going to allow us to scale to do more projects, to be able to grow with the team that we have before needing to like bring on a lot more people. But it's also going to allow us to like even while we're doing more projects, we can still create a high level of quality for those projects because we're just taking the time that we were spending on more of the mundane tasks, information compiling and all those things, and now we're able
Yeah.
to focus solely on the creative elements of the project. So while we're able to do more, we're also able to maintain or excel our like level of quality.
Love it. What used to be hard that feels easy now that you have the hiring assistant and the pre-production assistant? If there's one thing that you can point to, maybe.
The creative brief that we end up with after using the pre-production assistant has allowed us to, it seems really easy now to get on the same page as a team going into a project and to like share like the overview of any given project. Like
Hmm.
usually when we start a new project, we have a package of content that we're creating for a client. So there's different goals for different videos, different purposes, and now we have like a very clean way of just handing over this like just detailed document that
Hmm.
highlights everything in like a simple way. So like we're it seems much simpler to be on the same page
Yep.
all the way through the project too. I mean, like I said, we just onboarded a new editor. So the idea
Yeah.
is that from our videographers and creative leads all the way from them to the editor can have everything that they need immediately,
Yeah.
like right,
Right.
right there. So even like finishing up the project, they could have not been involved in the project. the entire time, not been on any shoots, and they can get that creative brief and know exactly what they need to do.
Cool. What have these assistants kind of helped free you up to focus on as the founder?
It's allowed me to work more on the business opposed to working in the business. We're all hands on deck. Everyone's doing a little bit of everything. So
Mhm.
the more that I'm able to, the two things I love, focus on the business and work creatively in these projects, it definitely cuts back
Yeah.
on burnout as a
Yeah.
business owner, as a creative, and just allows us to do the things that we like truly love to do. So,
Love it.
and when we're able to do that, we're able to offer better products, better videos to our clients, and allows us to grow way faster.
Love it. Yeah, and I think another thing that again I'm learning as we're having this discussion is so we train these assistants to do the work the way that you want it done to generate the
Yeah.
quality of output that you want, right? The output that you want, whatever it is, whether it's a job description that you like or the creative brief the way that you want it done. It enables much easier delegation because like these you can just say, all right, here, I'm going to delegate, you're responsible for creating all the creative briefs now. And instead of just saying that to them and but you just send them this assistant and then they work with this assistant, it's going to
Oh yeah.
reinforce that great process. So it enables for better delegation, I guess, is kind of something that I never considered, but love
Oh,
that.
absolutely.
Um,
And that's the end. I mean, that's really like the next step really, right? Is to create a business that you
yeah,
could do the 1 month vacation test and just like
yeah,
walk away. And
sweet. Who would you recommend working with me to, and why?
I can't imagine there's anyone out there that wouldn't benefit from these tools. I mean, when you're able to just like, again, take so many of these like detail oriented tasks that just take a long time and just like cut down the amount of time that you're spending on them, it's just like invaluable to a business owner. So, I mean, I would recommend anyone use these tools, especially again when you're customizing them to every single person. Like it's not like a one size fits all. It's specifically designed for each business. So whether
Yeah,
people are just looking to cut back on, the amount of time that they're needing to spend in their business, or they're really looking to scale, they want to make things simpler or like get things systemized. Like this is really for everybody.
love it.
There's a lot of things that I don't love about AI too, but when it's used correctly and when it's used to as more of an assistant and an aid to give you more freedom to focus on the things that you love and the things that you're
Right.
best at and that are like life-giving. I think it's a great application and something that works very well alongside a creative. Instead of, it's not
Yeah.
replacing anything, it's
No.
just reinforcing.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's how this technology should be implemented. It shouldn't
Yeah.
be right? There's something magical and special about humans, especially in the creative sense. And I agree with you as far as like what is the biggest value add for this pre-production assistant is like the creation of that creative brief, which is really just like a consolidation of a bunch of information that you've pulled from the sales process, the onboarding
Yeah.
process, your own insights, your own ideas, right? Just consolidating all that down into a clean creative brief document that then becomes the source of truth for this project that guides the creativity that comes later, like in writing the scripts, brainstorming the shots, planning the production, etc. The direct example or testament to this tool is like that task. I mean, were you creating those creative briefs before we even had this?
We input the transcripts and data from the calls. That takes a few minutes just to compile those documents and input
Mm,
them into the system, and then, kind of work along the process and move them over to a creative brief. We can do it in 30 minutes.
nice. Love it. So that's just like, call it 2 hours for every single creative brief that you're saving every single project,
Oh,
right? That's
yeah, I
more
would say
time
at
at
least.
least. Yeah. So that's more time that you can spend on like those higher leverage tasks and build more momentum in the project, kind of keep things moving quicker so you can take on more projects. And yeah, that's just like one of the tasks within the pre-production process that it helps with and helps save time. So love it. I think in the creative world, right, there's definitely a lot of hesitancy to using and leveraging AI, but I think people are just only focused on like, oh, video generation and AI and, photo
Yeah,
generation. And I don't think that it's never going to get to the place where it's like, we're not going to have a Jake Cross like AI, right? That's going to be able to do what you do and what your Uncharted team does and what you create.
yeah.
Cool. I guess one last thing that I would love to ask you is how would you describe the difference of working with these assistants versus like regular ChatGPT or Gemini or like a regular or large language model?
The biggest difference between the two is just how customized these assistants are for us. So they understand our voice. Like when we get, maybe ideas for shots, they're in our cinematic docu style. Like those are like the first suggestions that they make and the first kind of style that it leans to. Even when it's like, helping us generate some questions that we can kind of get the ball rolling in these interviews. Like you figured out that we like to ask a lot of why questions. So now it generates,
Hmm.
it starts with why questions first. And then when we combine, what we do and the style that we like with the creative brief, it's just a really custom tailored solution opposed to like ChatGPT. I feel like I tend to just get the same thing, and the deeper I dive into it, it doesn't get more tailored. It almost loses quality in what it's trying to tell me, or
Mm.
like just starts getting messy. So,
Cool. Yeah,
y-
just like
yeah,
hyper personalized, just has so much context on who you are. Yeah, I mean, like my goal is that it just removes as much of the need for prompting as possible, right? Because like that's the biggest challenge with getting value out of these large
right.
language models is like the need for prompt engineering. My hope is that these assistants really cut that way down in order to get the value out of AI.
I mean, the other element is that we don't have to try to reconstruct a prompt every time. All of these assistants are built in with the protocols that you created. So, when we need to come in and create a creative brief, instead of like, figuring out what's the best way to phrase this so the assistant comes up with the best solution, we literally open up the assistant and hit a button that
Yeah.
says,
Yep.
I need to start a creative brief. Or,
Yep.
even when we're hiring, it's like, what's the first thing I should do? I just look at the protocols and
Yeah.
here's step one, create a project description or figure out the overview. Like the protocols just make everything so much easier. And it even takes like the guessing game and prompt creation completely out
Hmm.
of it.
That's the goal, Jake. Thank you again so much for your time.
Thanks, you too. Yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah.